How's everybody doing? Good? All right, so excited about the Lions this week. I think one thing that's really obvious when you turn the tape on against Detroit is these guys are well coached. They play extremely hard, so it's a great opportunity for us to answer that challenge, to answer the physicality they kind of bring to the table, and finally get to the point where we actually execute an entire football game all at one time, right? So one thing we talked about at the beginning of the week was changing some stuff up when it comes to our approach. So we've talked about some of the issues, correcting some of those mistakes, but some of the reoccurring stuff is we need to demand that from the standpoint of coaches, but also overall from a player standpoint, right? So demanding without being demeaning is always the approach, but doing a really good job of understanding to move to the point we get our actions to match our words. We've had some great dialogue throughout, since we first got here in March, as we talked about who we want to be identity-wise, how we're going to build things offensively, but we have yet to bring it to life, right? So talk is cheap. So the overall challenge is continuing. I kind of made a more of a, I would say, a different approach this Monday when it comes to even more urgency is putting it all together, right? When it comes to our physicality, our execution, eliminating some of those mistakes, playing physical down in, down out, and put just one game together at a time. So hopefully that starts this week.
What's the challenge? Your run game continues to struggle. Now you're facing the number one run defense. What's the challenge to get that identity you want when you're faced with this situation?
Everyone do more. Starting first with us coaches. But that comes down to trimming the list more, giving more clarity, more detail, even demanding more from a practice standpoint, but every person to a man, right, answering the opportunity to be able to win your one-on-one matchups. I think if you look across the last couple of games, there's 4 or 5 plays here and there where you have, one guy with a mental error, one guy with a wrong technique to kind of screw the entire play up. But obviously, us playing together as a unit, being more focused on that, and that's what it takes.
You mentioned changes this week. Was that more dialogue or was it some of it schematic?
To me, it was less dialogue and more action. I think also the overall approach and demeanor, as far as, like I said before, demanding more out of our players and from ourselves is from a coaching staff standpoint, that we're actually getting what we're kind of putting forth as far as the effort in the building, the man hours, that it shows up on actual game day, that we actually play the way that we actually practice. They have an opportunity to go through different looks, different scenarios, and have an execution that for whatever reason has not transferred over to the actual game. So that continues to be the focus, our approach. And so it's more of that and kind of more so from a schematic standpoint.
You mentioned the identity and you guys having those discussions in March. I think everybody still wants to know, what is the identity of this offense?
That's a great question. That's also my whole point to us when it comes to who we say we want to be and what we put on tape. I think it all still boils down to being physical at every single position. I think we've been that way at times, but it hasn't always been consistent. It still boils down to finding, creating, and winning matchups, which, again, we've won some matchups. We've had some explosive plays here and there, but it hasn't been consistent. It also boils down to the stuff that takes no talent. Way too many mental errors, way too many penalties. So that is who we say we want to be. We've got to prove that.
Thomas, last year when they were having late in the season run game success, doing a lot of power, a lot of trap, I know you've brought in some wide zone. Frank said you guys are probably running a little more zone.
Yeah.
Do you think that's been a transition for these linemen to kind of go from that scheme to yours?
I would say it's a convenient excuse. I think scheme is scheme, but we just talk about the overall standpoint of the execution from assignment-based standpoint. It's the overall demeanor and approach you bring to it. Right, last year. Obviously, getting here, that was one of the highlights when it comes to those guys being physical up front, us being kind of established the run game and kind of build off of that. And it's time for us to answer that bell.
Thomas, Frank uses the phrase diversity of thought when he put this staff together, guys from different staffs. How have the conversations kind of evolved as you guys try to put together a coherent whole?
I think every week is always solution-oriented. I think being able to have a consistent process, and obviously desire is to get the results, but it's never results over the process. I do believe in that process of being able to go through what we're trying to build together, but it's always constant dialogue about areas we can improve upon. First and foremost, starting with issuing more of a challenge for ourselves to be better communicators, to give more clarity, to structure things differently, but hopefully that transfers over to our players as well.
Thomas, in training camp, Frank raved about the tight end rule. He said, it's a big part of the offense, but it hasn't really been not a lot of of catches out of that group. Why is that, and does that need to change?
Well, I think one thing we talk about the tight end group is when you understand the position, and having had a chance to coach that before I came here in LA, that's a spot that kind of has a lot of involvement with the offense. I think when you talk about overall success, it's not just about touches and catches. What they do in the run game and protection game is a big part of overall success. And I won't just highlight that group and say it needs to be more production. We know we need more production overall from everybody. It's not just that one group in particular. And that all boils down, again, to week-to-week game plan, what the opponent kind of presents, which obviously last week Minnesota is going to be totally different than Detroit as far as what they kind of bring to the table defensively. But that's going to be our overall focus.
You started off by saying that you want to clean up some reoccurring errors. What are those?
It's just having a clean operation when it comes to our execution down in and down out. It's not always the exact same mistake over and over again, but it's as far as us having all 11 guys working together at one time to be efficient down in and down out.
And specifically about the operation, why has the pre-snap operation been a little hinky?
So a number of different reasons why. When it comes to making sure the guys are hustling to get back into the huddle, that we're clear communicating from the sideline into the huddle, from the quarterback into the entire group, but also breaking the huddle with tempo as well. So it's all a collective group when it comes to all of us being involved and charged with the issue of making sure we get that fixed.
Coach Terrence Marshall, 14 catches the last 2 weeks, although they're mostly screens or short passes.
Yep.
Is he earning your and Bryce's confidence?
Yeah, I think he's done a really good job of stepping in when he's had opportunities to present and make the play that's kind of there when it comes to last week kind of being more so screen-oriented, because if you understand how Minnesota plays, it's a ton of zeros, and one answer is 2 zeros is to be able to screen and get the ball out from a perimeter standpoint. But he's done a really good job when it comes to when the ball's not in his hands. We ask our receivers to do a whole lot when it comes to being involved in the blocking surface, but also in pass protection also.
And how is Mingo?
It's been good.
Will he play this week?
He will, yes.
Thomas, you mentioned trimming plays earlier. How much have you done? I mean, or is it an emphasis to kind of simplify things a little bit for everybody when you talk about cleaning up that operation?
I think it's a combination of both when it comes to making sure week in and week out we're having the answers for the weekly opponent, because obviously, again, that's going to change from 1 week to the next. But stuff that we have time on task with when it comes to going back to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 in training camp, and just trying to find different ways to dress that up so we can be more efficient overall.
I know you guys have been trying to get more chunk plays. Lions defense is pretty stout in passing yards giving up. How do you kind of get that part of the game rolling?
It's all about execution. I think, again, I know I said that last week. You're probably tired of me giving you the same answer, but it's the truth. I'm not going to make up different answers, but when it comes to our overall operation, understanding the timing it takes and the rhythm in our passing game, always giving Bryce clear answers when it comes to every concept we provide, but also give him enough time to kind of operate from a pocket standpoint.
Where would you say Bryce has made his most progressions through first month?
I think everything he does, every rep he takes, he continues to get better. Only asking for one specific area, but I say the overall approach to being in meetings, even giving more dialogue in our unit meetings. So I think the more comfortable you become from a quarterback standpoint, when I'm doing the installs of the pass game install, him being able to speak up and talk about how he sees the play, coaching up different receivers on how he looks to get those guys open from a particular timing standpoint. So I would say every rep he continues to get better and improve day in and day out.
What did you see out of Chuba last week that kind of prompted you guys to give him a longer look?
What Chuba's done from day one since I got here, I think the consistent energy, the effort, the execution by him, the energy he brings to the entire offense when it comes to the physicality, the approach that he brings is kind of a tone setter for us and kind of what we're trying to build upon with the entire group.
Did you like that snap breakdown between him and Miles?
I think every week is going to be different when it comes to the plays we have, but I think it's important to understand when you have a running back position, it's important to keep guys healthy and keep them fresh. I think it's a really good combo between him and Miles as far as what they bring to the table as a 1-2 punch.
When success isn't immediate, how do you pour as an OC? How do you pour into Bryce as a young competitor so that he doesn't get discouraged during this 0-4 start?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of continuing to affirm the things he's doing well, but always coaching on ways that he can improve. And not just him, but it's with the entire group. I think about when it comes to our message week in and week out, day in and day out, about daily improvements and focusing on that to get the eventual result.
Any thoughts thoughts on Goff and how he's handling the surge with the Lions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Jared Goff fan. I was great to kind of be around him. He was always great to me. Had a chance to obviously spend some time with him, kind of pregame wise from a preseason standpoint. So happy for him.
Good. Any other questions?
I'm trying to remember. A defensive player yesterday described this as being a dogfight. Is that what you're seeing on tape? And, you know, does this team have the dog in it to kind of compete in the dog?
Talking about our team?
Yes.
We're going to find out. I mean, definitely when it comes to the Lions' approach, there's no secret when it comes to how they're built, their mentality, both sides of the ball, being physical, outworking the opponent, which is, you know, evident kind of, you know, week in and week out. But our challenge is that we answer the bell to that and respond the right way. So do I believe that? Absolutely.
Thomas, just outside of the obvious, what would a breakout day and a win do for the offense, this team is overall? I mean, beside the obvious of getting that first win.
Yeah, I mean, just a step in the right direction when it comes to what we've been building from day one, being able to kind of stack some days back to back where we can kind of end up getting the ball rolling from a standpoint of overall confidence. But a win's a win, so that's what we're hunting up every week.
Chandler and Hickey obviously played together in college, so, I mean, what do you feels like going into some of that struggle on that left side?
Again, I would say not just to highlight those two guys, we had many issues across the board with all 11 positions. So I think it's overall the improvement of how we coach each individual guy, how we handle it from a coaching staff standpoint, and try to find ways to get to what we're seeking out when it comes to the overall execution.